people living with abandonment issues often experience problems with their relationships in that they're terrified the other person will leave them. There are signs and symptoms to abandonment, and these include being a people pleaser, having an inability to trust others, giving too much in a relationship, avoiding others to avoid rejection from them. A lot of times, people with abandonment issues in childhood, they don't even want to make friends as adults because they're afraid their friends are going to abandon them at some point. Um, Oftentimes, it's being codependent, insecurity while dealing with friends or family, sabotaging the relationships, unable to express emotional intimacy. You have a lot of people that find them, well, I hate to say find themselves in affairs, but will get into affairs due to abandonment. They think the person that they're with um, may leave them. So let me go out and make sure I have somebody else in case that happens. That's one of the many, many, many components of affairs. While all children can also form abandonment issues, it's normal for children under 3 to fear being left alone. So if like anybody watching this, I don't want you to think, well, geez, my parents left me alone when I was A, B, and C. That's kind of normal, although a child under 3 does react as if they're being abandoned, which is why a lot of times if you have young kids and you try to drop them off at daycare or something, they'll hold on to your legs forever because they don't understand the concept of somebody's going to return. That doesn't necessarily give somebody abandonment issues because the parent always does return. So I want to give you a few symptoms that where the you should be concerned or there is concern if when there's a child involved, especially or even an adult, is there excessive clinginess. A lot of times, children will want to cling to an adult when they're left somewhere, or even adults if you're in a relationship and your partner, your spouse, your significant other won't even let you breathe because there's so much clinginess. That could be a determining factor that, geez, that this person might have some abandonment issues in their past. Having a fear of being left alone. Children as well as adults that have abandonment issues, they don't like to be alone because they feel as if everybody abandoned them. Oftentimes, kids and adults alike will have frequent illnesses for no apparent reason. There's no cause for it. There's just an illness. And some of that is self-induced because if I'm not feeling well, everybody will come out of the woodworks to see how I am, or I'll go to the doctor and get some attention from the medical staff. Um, they could have low self-esteem. I mean, there's a myriad components to the what marks abandonment, but those are just some of them. Abandonment issues are heartbreaking, certainly, and when paired with a mental health issue such as, let's just say, PTSD or dissociative identity disorder, they could become very destructive, extremely destructive. Because now it's like you have these unfounded fears and then these anxieties that nobody's there for you, and it can get really serious and intense, which is oftentimes why I say, especially if I'm like coaching couples, if one couple has to, let's just say there's a couple fighting and one couple has to say, listen, I need to go in the other room to calm down, or I need to go for a drive. It's good to state that. It's good to state your intentions because if one person gets dysregulated and they just leave the situation, the other person, the other party who may have um, abandonment issues will feel that will trigger in them, oh my gosh, I'm being left. And no, you're not being left. This person just has to temporarily leave to calm down. So I always try to stress to the couples that I'm coaching, if you get into an argument and you need to take a break, state your intentions. I need to go in the other room and pray or meditate for an hour. Or I need to go for a ride. I'll be back in a half an hour, whatever. State your intentions. So the long-term effects of abandonment, uh, if it happens in childhood. And the reason I'm mentioning childhood a lot in this class is because in our childhood is the blueprint, and a lot of us are expressing today many of what happened in our childhood. So if we grew up in an unsafe environment, then we grow up, or if we were raised in an unsafe environment, we grew up not trusting our surroundings, and that affects our relationships. The emotions accompanying abandonment include feeling like, maybe we don't deserve positive attention or adequate care. Um, uh, there's a myriad of these as well. People who are victims of abandonment are more likely than others to develop devastating mental health disorders. It could be mood swings, anger issues, anxiety, borderline personality disorder, depression, all kinds of things can form from abandonment. It isn't only behavior that's changed by abandonment, but also long-term consequences affect future generations, because research has found that offspring born to abandoned and neglected parents inherit brain abnormalities. So they've actually went and found brain abnormalities with children that were raised by people with abandonment issues. There's also self-abandonment. People who have lived through rejection from their caregivers have difficulty trusting themselves, and they tend to hide their feelings, their beliefs, their ideas, just to fit in and please others. Self-abandonment occurs when you don't value yourself or act in situations in your best interest. And this also goes to boundaries. A lot of people that have abandonment issues, they don't have boundaries because almost like, hey, I'm a free for all, because if I'm a free for all, everybody's going to come in and love me. Um, that usually bites us in the butt. Doesn't work that way, but that's a normal and common situation as well. So just a few examples of self-abandonment, not trusting your instincts, which Lord knows in adulthood we need. Overthinking and ruminating on decisions and assuming others know more than you or are better than you. Not recognizing your feelings and needs. More importantly, not advocating, not voicing your feelings and needs. Not seeing that your needs are valid and feeling unworthy of self-care. Judging yourself, being critical and judgmental, being mean to yourself and saying hurtful statements often. And I don't necessarily mean, how like we're all going through life and doing things and we're like, oh my God, how could I be so stupid? Not necessarily that, but that is the start of negative self-talk. Not honoring your values, doing things to please others, even though you don't believe in them and going against your values. And this could be anything from lying for somebody to uh, constantly saying yes to everybody who asks you something, which I tell people all the time. Just because you're free does not mean you're available. Having the inability to speak up for yourself, that includes not asking for what you need, having problems setting and enforcing boundaries, like I just said, allowing people to take advantage of you, like I just said. How many times do we get off the phone or respond to an email like, why did I commit to that? This is the last thing I want to do, but why did I commit to that? That could be rooted in abandonment. So, some treatments or some ways maybe to heal abandonment issues. Number one, the treatment of abandonment issues focuses mainly on establishing healthy emotional boundaries and building many new responses through old patterns of fear. One of the things I just want to say quickly, a lot of times people are like, well, how do I make a boundary? I don't even know how to go about boundaries. One of the things that I encourage people to do is first create a values list. What are your core values? So hypothetically speaking, let's just say, you're writing core values. I'll give you an example. One of my core values is timeliness. I am very big on timeliness. If you ask me to meet you somewhere at 1:59 or 2 o'clock, I'm going to be there at 1:59 to make sure I'm there at 2 o'clock. And if I'm not for some type of emergency, I'm absolutely going to let you know. I'm very big on timeliness. And that's what I expect too. So a value of mine is timeliness. So what you do then is you take your list of values and then you invert that and you make them your boundaries. So for instance, I don't care what everybody else does and what they say and how they do it, but if somebody's going to be in my inner circle, they have to respect my time. So that's a boundary of mine. People have to respect my time. And then, of course, I always say boundaries without consequences are wishful thinking. So the first step is to have boundaries. And I digress. This was not a part of the class, but whatever. The first part of boundaries is creating boundaries. The second one is enforcing the boundaries. And the third one is consequences for the boundaries. And consequences could be anything from, just to sit down chat. Hey, you know, it really bothered me when you didn't show up on time, and then you didn't even give me a courtesy text. Where were you, or why you were running late? You know, all the way up to, you know, removing yourself from that relationship or what have you. Okay, but I digress. Two primary treatments that work together to treat abandonment and neglect issues could include coaching and counseling. Seeking a mental health professional's help can really help with people with childhood development, understanding where it originated, overcoming their fears with it. Professionals definitely can work to help people understand, like I said, where these abandonment issues originated, and try to really go in and do some mental health surgery from its origin. Self-care, and I know everybody watching this is probably sick of hearing that term, but really self-care is self-love. And I always say self-care is not vanity, it's sanity. You can't pour from an empty cup, so you have to fill your cup first, and that way when everybody else around you wants something, whatever's overflowing out of your cup, you have to give. But you can't pour from an empty cup, so you got to fill your cup first. um should you love someone who has abandonment issues, there are ways you can support them while they heal, such as validating their fears. You don't have to agree with them, but just validate that they feel that way. If you're talking to somebody who has some abandonment issues, treatment can teach new ways of thinking and cope with ending the overarching and debilitating power that abandonment can have on us. And again, it usually starts in childhood, or most likely always starts in childhood. And if we don't work to heal it, we take it into adulthood. One of the things I want to say, if anybody is watching this now or in the future that may have endured or dealt with some abandonment issues, is just knowing you are enough. You have to work on that, you have to believe that, and you have to grow into that reality and that truth that you are enough. And I just want to end this class with two quotes that I found and I liked. And one of them is, don't dilute yourself for any reason or any person. You are enough. Be unapologetically you. And that was by Steve Maraboli. And the next one is this: live life, be brave, believe in yourself, be kind to others, smile daily, love as much as possible, and always remember you are enough. As it is, you are enough.